leadership in getting this region to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. And finally, RIS has emerged as the key think tank for discussions in India on SDGs under Sachin's leadership. We are very happy to have RIS partner with us for this forum. And I want to thank my UN colleague, the resident coordinator in India of UN country team, Yuri, for joining us this morning. He has led very recently the country team to prepare what is called as the United Nations Sustainable Development Framework for India, jointly with Niti Aayog, which was actually signed very recently, in the presence of Dr. Rajiv Kumar. And so we are all in the UN country team looking forward to working closely with Yuri and his team to make this happen in India, along with the efforts of the states and central governments. With these words, I welcome you once again and look forward to working with you over the next 2 days. Thank you very much. I must also recognize the presence of His Excellency Dr. Suhail Mahmood, the High Commissioner of Pakistan in India. I have known him since his days in Bangkok, when he was a permanent representative of Pakistan to UN SCAP. So Excellency, most welcome to this forum. And I also want to recognize the presence of Ambassador Gyan Chandra Acharya, the former Under Secretary General of United Nations, and now the chair of Saudi Center on SDGs in South Asia. So thank you very much. There are many distinguished personalities, so I would not recognize each one, but I thought at least these two deserve the mention. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nagesh Kumar. May I take this opportunity now to invite Professor Sachin Chaturvedi, Director General of Research and Information Systems for Developing Countries, RIS.
Thanks, Mr. Ratna. Thanks, Dr. Nagesh, for extremely rich and very comprehensive remarks this morning, for welcoming all our delegates. A very warm welcome from our side to everyone. RIS is extremely pleased to carry on this major responsibility that all the key institutions led by Niti and UN India have taken upon themselves in terms of creating greater awareness, deeper dialogue across various actors, not only those who are in Delhi, but also with state governments. And thanks to leadership at Niti, this has gone to several states and geographic locations. It has picked up hilly states, it has picked up coastal states and states with specific challenges. So that, I think, is the large span that this series is trying to address. So good morning with those comments to everyone. Dr. Pushpa Raj Kadal, the Honorable Vice Chairman of National Planning Commission, Nepal. Dr. Rajiv Kumar, Chairman, Vice Chairman, Niti Aayog. Our friend Yuri, who has been a very dynamic force in this whole, my predecessor at RIS, and now back in Delhi, Dr. Nagesh Kumar. Ladies and gentlemen, dignitaries here, scholars from the South Asian region, and representatives from the states. It's absolute pleasure for us to get associated with this Asia Pacific Forum on Sustainable Development, and this conference is a preparatory conference for that, as Dr. Nagesh mentioned. It is also extremely important for us to see how we are getting some of our own initiatives under Agenda 2030, popularly known as Sustainable Development Goals, are getting articulated. With India and many other countries celebrating 150th anniversary of Gandhi and 100th anniversary of Nelson Mandela, SDGs are very much in the air and all across. Last 2 days, those of you who are following media and those of you who were part of the events, the Secretary General of the United Nations reminded all of us on how important SDGs are. In India, Prime Minister's call for Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas right in 2014 was very much a collective commitment to to the Agenda 2030, leaving no one behind. Those who think that SDG is a UN agenda are not getting the facts right. And it is absolutely important for us to see that SDGs actually reflect the indigeneity that India has in terms of our commitment to this idea of balanced economic growth. The fact that yesterday Prime Minister dedicated the UN award that he received to this idea of sub-regions culture and social ethos, which are bringing in such appreciations from all across the world. The fact that he could lead the launching of the International Solar Alliance very much reflects India's commitment and that way the sub-region's commitment to have oneness with nature. And that is absolutely essential for us to move forward. The very idea that Gandhi suggested and which is getting reflected in India's new strategy on Agenda 2030, with Sarvodaya and Antodaya, reflects the idea of commitment on sustainable development goals. Thanks to Dr. Rajiv Kumar, SDGs have got a new traction at Niti Aayog. Team that just few weeks back was being led by Mr. Ashok Jain, who is here today, and now by Sanyukta Samadar, is going to prove extremely productive in terms of how we are going to go forward. Dr. Rajiv Kumar's recent visit to Nepal and his efforts to connect Tripura and Bangladesh in a major way, and the new initiative which is getting greater appreciation from everyone, I think is an important role that Niti Aayog is going to play. Friends, the SDGs mirror India's national development agenda. Very recently, External Affairs Minister, in her speech at the United Nations General Assembly, articulated India's strong ownership of the SDGs and that India is well on its path to fulfill the promises to make SDGs successful globally. India's flagship programs, and as I said, we celebrated Mahatma Gandhi's 150th anniversary, are trying to bring in issues that are now getting associated with Swachh Bharat mission. At RIS, we have initiated a special program on what kind of urbanization we require under Goal 11. Professor Amitabh Kundu, who is here, is leading our work program on this very issue. And we have Dr. P.K. Anand and Mr. Krishna Kumar, who are leading our work program on SDG 2. And that way, the two extremely important goals for India are getting addressed in our work program. Issues are also important with health, and that's where the interconnect comes in. Professor T.C. James and others at RIS are leading this work program on Goal 3. So that way RIS is focusing on these three, apart from Goal 17, where Sabyasachi and me, we are working on the resources that you require, the financing that you require, and of course the issues that are related to technology. Within the country, again, the idea, and I'm sure Mr. Rajiv Kumar would be talking about it, the issue that Dr. Nagesh raised in terms of financial inclusion. And this is absolutely important for us to see how schemes like Mudra, the Startup India or Stand Up India have provided the fillip which is needed. But when we are talking about industrialization, as Dr. Nagesh mentioned, I think some of the economists who are advising and are into the process of setting the agenda for financial economies of our region and our country would have to bear in mind in terms of the nature of inflation that we are grappling with. The fact that inflation in India is more a supply side constraint, and for that complete freeze on industrial credit probably may not be the right way. And I think it is important when we talk about industrial restructuring, the fact that RBI day before yesterday released data where expansion in industrial credit is just 1%. I think is absolutely essential for key entities and offices to realize that industrial credit is absolutely essential. The fact that we have feared too much of the NPAs and others would have crucial implications on Goal 8 and 9, which are the fulcrum for the region, and as Dr. Nagesh very rightly mentioned, are important for us to move forward with industrial and economic growth. India presented its VNR in 2017. RIS had the pleasure and privilege to work very closely with Niti Aayog on the VNR. along with Afghanistan and Bangladesh, Maldives and Nepal. These all countries presented their VNR in 2017. In 2018, Bhutan and Sri Lanka presented their VNRs, and Pakistan is listed to do so in 2019. India is guided by the philosophy of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, or the world is one family, in fulfilling her commitments globally. South Asia is family for India in literal sense, and as Prime Minister has been emphasizing time and again, gives the necessary heft for India's own economic growth and sustenance. India's pledge in unwavering support for regional cooperation through its neighborhood first policy is extremely important for us to carry forward when we are talking about SDGs, because of the sheer cross-domain and cross-border connect in this process. Negative narratives around South Asia being least integrated hide substantive progress made through regional cooperation efforts that Dr. Nagesh alluded to. South Asia is large for relative share of the world population and also in terms of share of world's poor people. Riding on steady economic progress, growth in per capita GDP, poverty headcount ratio as $1.90 a day for 2011 PPP for South Asia fell from 44.4% in 1990 to 15.1% in 2013. Though challenges are immense and we have to work on goal one, but goal one should not in a way deter us in terms of our own achievements. The world and world media particularly put South Asia in a negative context all the time. I think it's time that we realize some of the challenges that are there, but we should also rejoice with the achievements that we have and the strength that we have in terms of our cooperation. Idea is also in terms of taking advantage of the duty-free, quota-free access that was extended in 2008, and for Bangladesh, all the 100% tariff lines have been made available. I think more of the value chains, as was mentioned earlier, are extremely important for us to move forward collectively and explore for next 2 days the idea of working together for SDGs. On Saturday, we have planned an exclusive consultation among the think tanks from South Asia who are here with us for a sort of closed room consultation on how think tanks can contribute in these areas. So with these words, I once again very warmly welcome all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Chaturvedi. May I now make a request to Mr. Yuri Afanasiev, United Nations Resident Coordinator of India, please.
Honorable Vice Chair Niti, honorable friends and colleagues on the dais, honorable guests from all of South Asia, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, welcome. Thank you to the organizers for initiating this consultation. И доброе утро, спасибо. It was very nice walking in to hear my language as the first word that was spoken to me by dear colleagues from the neighborhood. I don't know if it's connected with the President of Russia visiting India today, but thank you anyway. Let me start by firstly sending you greetings from the Secretary General, who actually boarded the plane 6 hours ago in Delhi to go back to New York. He would have wanted to be here with you to address this august gathering of member states from the region, but he had to rush back after a 3-day visit to India. Secondly, on a more somber note, I think on behalf of the United Nations, and I'm sure from all of us, let me also express our condolences to our friends in Indonesia who are going through a horrible moment in time. For me, it's almost a personal experience, because 13 years ago, I led part of the UN effort for the Boxing Day tsunami, including in Indonesia and other parts of South Asia and even the African coast, because almost a dozen countries were hit. And having these reminders happen again is not an image that one cherishes. But let me stop on 3 very quick things in these introductory remarks that I wanted to bring to your attention. Some of them have already been covered by my colleagues a minute ago. First of all, also let me remind you that we have just entered into the 150th anniversary of one of the probably 2 or 3 key figures of the 20th century, and that's Mahatma Gandhi. And for many of us, he is an illustration, an inspiration of what the SDGs are all about. It's not coincidental that the Secretary General attended the interministerial conference where 60 ministers from around the world gathered to talk about sanitation and water and its impacts on health, but also to recognize what India has done in an incredibly short period of 4 to 5 years of almost bringing India to open defecation-free status. And we are assured that this work will be completed by this time next year, in time for the actual 150th anniversary of his birth. But the 3 things that I wanted to mention today is multidimensional poverty is one issue, and colleagues have spoken about income poverty and both the challenges and the successes we have in this part of the world. Secondly, again, it was mentioned, gender disparities and gender inequalities which still persist in our region and frankly are probably preventing us from achieving not only the social targets, but also quite simply the economic growth targets, because women's participation in the labor force would dramatically boost economic growth in many countries. And certainly the third and probably the issue where I want to spend a couple of minutes is climate change. So on multidimensional poverty, look, and both, I think Sachin Chaturvedi and my friend and colleague Nagesh mentioned it in both a challenge and a success dimension story.